Hi, welcome to Life is a Treasure podcast. I'm your hostess, Michelle Durand, and you're listening to episode number 39, Freedom from Fear. I'd like to start off by reading a few quotes in regards to fear. Fear has two meanings: forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The choice is yours. Fear is the result of a lack of confidence. A lack of confidence is the result of not knowing what you can do. A lack of not knowing what you can do is caused by a lack of experience. A lack of experience is caused by a lack of doing something new. And being brave isn't the absence of fear. Being brave is having that fear, but finding a way through it, by Bear Grylls. Those are a few quotes that I feel like really sum up what this episode is going to be about. We all have fear, and fear is a natural emotion that we are given to help us to feel safe, to protect us, to help us to know if there's danger in order to react or respond in order to keep ourselves and our body safe. But many times those fears start in our mind and they allow us to become trapped, or we allow those thoughts and those feelings to keep us in bondage. So as I start with this freedom from fear episode, I'm going to be sharing some symptoms of fear, some healthy, some unhealthy. I'm going to be talking about how we can learn to manage our fears and what fears really are. And then how can we take those fears and transform them, transform ourselves, transform our life into a life that is a treasure. So I hope that this episode will give you some inspiration, some encouragement, and some courage to change those areas from the fears that are holding you back in order to step up and step into the life that you will truly treasure. So I invite you to get comfortable and join me as we get started in looking at our fears and how we can stop them from stopping us in living our best life. So fear, as I said, is a very natural, powerful human emotion. We all have fears. Many times, you'll see babies and they might be born and they have no fear and they're not afraid to do anything. And then others are more safe and they don't like to take risks and they're real cautious. And just think about that, and think about that in your own life. How were you as a little child? Were you a risk taker and a daredevil? Did you just want to go out and explore life and not really think about the consequences? Or were you more reserved and you wanted to go slow and be safe and not venture out too far or too much, but just stay in that safe comfort zone? And as we're children, sometimes our parents will help us to explore more and take risks to see that it's okay. It's okay. You're okay. Everything went fine. It's not as you thought. Those fears can stay with us. And as we get older and as we become adults, we need to learn how to manage those fears in healthy ways. Not to be shaming ourselves and not to be hard on ourselves. We need to look at them with kindness and compassion. And we need to really think about it. I remember I was pretty much like a daredevil. I really didn't really think about the consequences. I just made decisions and did them, and I was a pretty brave person. I was pretty confident, and I know being brave and not having fear is also being confident. As that quote said, it's fear is the result of a lack of confidence, and so fear holds us back, and it prevents us from feeling confident. We feel scared and small, and we don't want to be seen, and we don't want to be heard, and that doesn't make us feel good. It might make us feel safe, but we don't want to go through life feeling scared and small and wanting to hide. We need to be aware, yes, and we need to be alerted if danger is around the corner and keep ourselves safe. But it's knowing what's real. And I remember someone who was so dear and close to me, who was a mentor in my life one time, and they said, Michelle, you know what? Fear is, I think it's called acronym, but false evidence appearing real. And that stuck with me. And so when I'm going through challenging, testing times, when I'm so afraid of doing something, I'm thinking thoughts and I say, but wait, is this false evidence appearing real? Because it might feel real, but is it real? Sometimes when I'm worried, I might be worried about my children because they live very far away. And I want them to be safe and I want them to be so secure, and I just want to protect my children as every mama bear does, And if you're a dad, maybe Papa Bear is really, you have worries and concerns for your children. But sometimes I have to go back to that and say, okay, wait, is that real? Are they really in danger? Or is this just false evidence in my mind, my thoughts appearing real? And I remind myself to calm down and that they're fine, they're good, they're safe. Nothing's wrong. It's just my imagination. And I hope through this episode that you can start to see that your worry and your controlling issues stem from fear. Yes, healthy fear is great and keeps us safe, but there's fear that will not be healthy and that will stop us and keep us in bondage in our own self-created prison. And I want you to be able to set yourself free from bondage, free from being a control freak, free from being a manipulator to make things go your way so that you feel safe. Because others around you know if you're being controlling or manipulating. I know. I was that way for so many years, and I wanted to control everything, and I wanted to make sure everybody was safe, and that wasn't the best thing for me or the people in my relationships. Maybe you find yourself in this situation and you want to learn more and be able to have a goal of more peace and just relief from those feelings, and to have more courage and bravery and be willing to take more risks, because that ultimately will bring you more joy, more love, more relationships that are healthy, and it will give you your power back, because fear can take away your power. It really can. I know. It can take away you experiencing life. And I'll share an example. I had a very strong fear of flying, and it wasn't really my fear. It was fear from everybody else saying they were scared to fly. And I came from a very small town, and I was really afraid to fly. And I remember from one of my first jobs, I had to go to Dallas, and I lived in Louisiana, and I had to fly to Dallas, Texas for a training for my job. And I was young and I was scared. I had to fly alone on a little bitty what they call prop plane, which made me feel scared as it was. Sound like it was going to crash, a prop plane. And, maybe 6 people maximum back then. And I was really, really afraid. But in order to advance in my job, I knew I needed to do this. And I knew it would be a great experience for me. So what did I have to do? I had to realize that, you know what? I just have to do this. I have to push through these feelings of fear and realize that, nope, it's not for sure that the plane is going to crash. I had to just calm myself down and think about, yes, it is a risk. Okay, yes, that's true. But the likelihood of something happening was very, very slim. The percentage was small. It was mostly my fears and my own thoughts in my own body. And I did it. I went to the airport. I got on the plane. And sometimes you have to do it afraid. I know Brene Brown speaks a lot about this, and she has some amazing books. And Just Google Brene, Brene, Brown, Brown. Brene Brown has some great books on being brave. And so I love that quote I read to you at the beginning. Being brave is not the absence of fear, but being brave is having that fear and finding a way through it. And that's how I felt on the airplane. It's that, yes, I still had fear, and I sat on the plane in my fear, and I found a way through it. And on the other side of the fear was a great experience. I learned so much that I was able to come back and do the best job I could at my job. And I met some wonderful people. And guess what? I got to say that I flew for the first time. And then few years later, I was then married, and I had 2 small children. They were 2 and 3 years old, and we had the opportunity to move overseas, all the way to Indonesia, which is like a total flying time over the water, over oceans and oceans and oceans, for a total of 30 hours with 2 small children. Again, fear, fear, fear. And I had to face that fear and say, this can either stop me, stop his career advancement of experiencing working overseas in the oil field, my children experiencing flying and growing up in a foreign country. And I could let those fears stop us from experiencing a great life overseas, being able to travel and see the world and experience things I never could if I decided I didn't want to fly. So again, I had to pull on my big girl pants and Mama Bear had to get my 2 little children, ages 2 and 3, and we had to go get on that jet plane with our stuff in 12 Foot Locker crates and fly across the ocean. And I did it. And I did it again and again and again and again. And we lived overseas a total of 8 years. And it was a wonderful experience. It made me who I am today. But if I had chosen to let that fear master me instead of me mastering that fear, I would have never experienced this. My children would have never experienced the life and the world travels, and just they're just so worldly from that experience. But Mama Bear could have held them back. I could have prevented them from experiencing that just because of my fear. And that's another message. If you're a mom or a dad listening, our fears can be transferred to our children. And when they become adults, we don't want them to be fearful. Yes, we want them to be aware in order to become safe and stay well and not harmed. But fear will be holding them back if they are living in fear. And our job as a mom and a dad is to help them to push through those fears and to learn which fears are healthy and which feelings are unhealthy. And it just allows us an opportunity to help them work through their fears. And another acronym I like about fear, and I prefer this one, is feelings. Fear stands for feelings, emotions, and reactions. And that's a good one to teach your children. Fear stands for feelings, emotions, and reactions. Explore their feelings with them. Explore your feelings with yourself. Explore your emotions. And then look at your reactions. Are they healthy or are they not healthy? So it's good to be aware. It's good to acknowledge those fears. It's good to name those feelings. And maybe, you have the fear of flying and you may choose to never fly, and it's perfectly fine. My parents have never flown. Most of my family's never flown, and they don't feel like they've missed out on anything. And you don't have to fly. I'm just sharing something that I was very, very fearful of. And I always ask myself, what am I afraid of? What is the worst thing that can happen? Is that likely going to happen? Another example, I won't say never, but I know I will not want to go up, skydiving. I don't want to do that. Nothing in me wants to jump out of some plane or whatever they do with a balloon thing. I don't even know, parachute. I don't feel like I'd miss out doing that. Okay. So it's like whatever, it just depends on your life and your experience and your opportunities. And so there's so many different fears. You could have a fear of money or losing money. You could have fears. I had a fear of becoming pregnant and what would happen to my body and how my stomach would stretch and the pain of having a child and all these fears. And again, I had to stop and say, okay, if I choose to let this fear dictate my life, because it dictates our life for real if we allow it, or I can just deal with it. And I rather deal with the fear. And because the end result, and that's always something to look at. What is going to be the end result? Me flying Indonesia was going to be that I got to see a beautiful country, meet some wonderful people who became my family, really. So, if it's going to turn out to be a great thing and something good for you in your life, then there's a chance that you want to push through those fears. Because on the other side, when I got pregnant and I had to go through labor and childbirth, I had a beautiful baby in my arms after. And you hear people say after the birth, you forget about the pain because you're so joyful having this new baby in your arms. And it's so, so true. And so it was worth going through the fear of being pregnant and the fear of childbirth and labor to have my 2 children. It could be fear of rejection. It could be fear of speaking. It could be fear of gaining weight. It could be fear of being vulnerable. All of those fears can hold us back from doing something we might want to do. It could hold us back from sharing our talents and our gifts with the world. We have so many opportunities, and we can either be open to them or we can be closed by fear. But the good news is that it's our choice. I'll go back to the quote in the beginning. Fear has 2 meanings. Forget everything and just run, or face everything and rise. So you have a choice. You can run from it, or you can rise up and face that challenge and say, you know what? I'm going to make a choice to rise rather than run away scared. I'm going to rise up and step into who I am meant to be. I'm going to rise up and step into this opportunity to do something that I've been wanting to do. And I'm not going to let fear hold me back anymore. I'm going to grasp inside of me and find that courage and that bravery to do what I know I'm called to do or what I want to do. You also can do the same thing. You have a choice. You always have a choice. You can release that burden of fear. You can release yourself from that self-created prison. And one thing I always think about, almost on a daily basis, is this leading me by fear or by faith? And faith is just not knowing what's going to happen, but just knowing that it's going to be okay no matter what happens. And I find in my own life, I would much rather be led by my faith than by my fear. Fear makes me feel afraid. It makes me feel scared, and it makes me feel small. I'm always thinking, what if they judge me? What if I fall? But I love that quote. Well, what if you fly? Fear allows us to always expect the worst. We doubt everything. We think everything's going to go wrong. I say this very often, but our thoughts start in our mind, and our thoughts create our feelings, and our feelings create our words, and our words create our reality. And if I continue to say, but what if I fall? I'm going to fall. I'm going to not even do anything or try. So I will fail, So it's about really asking yourself, again, is this healthy or is this unhealthy? Is this prohibiting me from doing something, or is this allowing me to be open to explore? And being negative all the time is not going to give you the life that you want. It's better to be more open to opportunities, open to experiences, open to love, open. Maybe you've been hurt in relationships and you're closed up because you're afraid. You have fear of being rejected, being hurt, being cheated on, being left, being alone. Those fears prevent you from experiencing love again. So really ask yourself, is my fears serving me, or are my fears allowing me to become a victim of my self-created prison? And then try to let go of those. Learn how to master your fears so that they do not master you. Turn your negatives into positives. Think about the great positive outcome. As I flew over the ocean, I could think about and focus on that we were going to something horrible is going to happen. We were going to crash and land in the ocean and everybody would drown. That's fear, right? Or I could think we're going to fly and see the clouds and experience this wonderful feeling of floating in the air, and then we're going to land so safely and see this beautiful island of Borneo and experience these wonderful new food and people and places. And when I focused on that, that's what brought me joy. That's what brought me peace. But when I focused on crashing in the ocean and drowning, that just brought me fear. And that brought anxiety, and it brought panic on me. And I see so many people who are going through anxiety, myself included. We have anxiety and we have panic, and then they're called attacks because they are an attack. They're called disorder because it's an anxiety disorder. It's not orderly. It's not healthy for us. But if we are aware and consciously choosing how much news we listen to, how much social media we're involved in. The news is filled with scare tactics, with fear, with negative. We see riots, yes, we want to be aware, but when you are constantly hearing that, it affects our mindset. Our mental health is extremely important. And next week I have the episode coming out on freedom of mind. It's going to be really good. So make sure you're subscribed and get the notification when it goes live, and share these episodes. Please share them and help other people, because my whole mission and purpose of having this podcast is to help people be set free from bondage and fears and traumas. And last episode was freedom from the past. I share a lot about that with Tears to Treasures and my abortion experience, and how my past kept me in bondage because I didn't want to forgive. And our past can keep us in bondage if we don't forgive and have freedom from our past. So be willing to replace those fears with faith. Your goal is to have peace, to have relief, to be willing to take risks, to find courage and be brave. Have a power of mind, be open to love again in relationships. And most importantly, to find that inner joy that can replace the fears that you may be feeling. If you're struggling right now with fears, I want to invite you to reach out to me. I am offering my listeners of this podcast a free 30-minute one-on-one private session, which is just a safe space via video for you to express your feelings. And if you're feeling fears and you want to explore them, I will just be that safe space for you without any judgment, without any advice or opinion, just to allow yourself, when you speak your truth, it goes from the dark into the light, and that's where you can start bringing healing into your own heart and mind and body and soul and life and relationships. And I'll have a link in the show notes, And you can also find the link on my Facebook page if you're interested in taking advantage of this free opportunity to have a one-on-one session with me, to just be a mentor and a guide or a coach, whatever you want to call it, just that person there who really, really cares, because I do. I never want to see someone suffering alone, because you don't need to. I'm here for you. There's people out there who care. So don't let your fear hold you back any longer. I really hope that you can replace those fears with your faith, that you can be willing to face your fears and to develop your faith. It's a constant daily practice to develop faith. We never arrive and get there. Every day is a struggle. Every day brings new fears. So I just want to challenge you. Don't let your fears prevent you from living a life that you treasure. Don't let your fears prevent you from living a life that you treasure, because you are worthy. You deserve more than your fears. You deserve to have love in your life and a healthy relationship. But it starts with you. And you have everything within you to find that freedom, to set yourself free. The key is inside of you. The key is not with anyone else. You hold the key in your heart to set yourself free from whatever is holding you back, whether it's your past, whether it's your fears, whether it's your mind. You can set yourself free, and I can help you. If you want help, just reach out to me through the link on my website and on my show notes and on my Facebook page, whatever is more convenient for you. As we wrap up, I really hope that this episode has offered you some encouragement, some inspiration, some information. I would love to hear from you. What was your favorite part of this episode? What is it that you took away that you could apply and implement into your life today? What are some fears that are stopping you, that are keeping you stuck in your own life? Everything that I talk to anyone about is strictly confidential. You can reach out to me through various ways. I have a website, lifeisatreasure.com, and I always post it in the show notes. I am on Instagram. I have Michelle Durand, and I also have Life is a Treasure podcast and Tears to Treasures, which is the post-abortive and other trauma healing work that I do with women and men. So I really want to thank you. I want to thank you for listening to this podcast show. I want to thank you for listening to this episode. I want to thank you for doing your own work. Just by listening to this podcast, you are doing inner work, self-development. You are taking care of yourself. And when you're able to take care of yourself, you're able to take care of everyone around you so much better. So I just want to say thank you. You should be so proud of yourself. Acknowledge the work that you do for yourself, because you are so important and you're worthy of it. So as we wrap up this episode, I just hope that wherever you are in the world, that you are safe and that you are happy. And I just want to wish you all a great July. And this whole month is going to be focused on freedom for the 4th of July. I just felt that it would be a great time to talk about such an important topic to me, which is freedom. So I hope that you all find freedom through these episodes in July. And until next time, peace, love, and joy. Thank you for listening to Life is a Treasure podcast. I'm Michelle Durand, and I'd like to personally invite you to join us and continue the conversation in our free Facebook group, Life is a Treasure podcast. The link will be in the show notes at lifeisatreasure.com. You can also find my social media links on the website as well. Please reach out to me and introduce yourself. I'd love to hear where you're listening from and what your biggest takeaways have been. And as we begin to share our secrets, our stories, and our struggles, we find that others can have the courage to start sharing theirs. And this is how the healing process begins. So please help us spread the hope and the healing to others by subscribing, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. And make sure to tag me on Instagram at Michelle Marie with 2 E's, Durand, Durand, with hashtag Life is a Treasure podcast for a chance to get a shout out on the show. And also visit lifeisatreasure.com for all the resources and freebies mentioned. We believe that everyone is equal and worthy of healing and unconditional love. And we promise that if you invest your time and energy to do the inner work, you too can transform yourself and create a life that is a treasure. So you can live authentically, love unconditionally, and laugh wholeheartedly. And until next week, peace, love, and joy.